you who don't know, the Malachite Valleys are a pocket sort of dimension within the Geboverse cosmos, if that makes any sense. It originates from Geboverse Apex, but there are Malachite Valley Stargate doorways scattered all around the Geboverse cosmos. It's very interesting, actually. So let's go over what we know. The Malachite Valleys exist as one of the most singular locations in the Geboverse. Not a planet, not a dimension in the conventional sense, but something closer to a pocket of preserved intention. It sits outside the normal flow of galactic conflict, untouched by the tides of Imperium, Federation, hegemony, or pit. It is, in the truest sense of the word, a place that chose itself. For those of you who don't know, the Imperium, the Federation, the hegemony, and the pits are from Geboverse Apex. Now let's go over the universal constant that governs the Malachite Valleys. The governing rule of the Malachite Valleys is not enforced by any army, judicial body, or emperor. It is simply woven into the fabric of the place itself. No act of violence may be committed upon entry. This is not a law that can be broken and punished after the fact. It is a universal constant, a metaphysical property of the valleys, much like how the vacuum of space cannot hold breath. Weapons don't malfunction here, they simply become irrelevant. Hello? The impulse towards violence doesn't disappear, it meets a wall so absolute hi, that those carry it inside often describe the experience as the most disorienting moment of their lives. Warriors who have spent decades defined by combat have wept upon entering. Yes, I am reading about the Malachite Valleys. Have wept upon entering, not from sadness, but from the sudden unfamiliar weight of stillness. Hi. The Malachite Valley is simultaneously the safest and most psychologically challenging place in the Geboverse to visit. Those who have only ever known themselves through conflict must confront who they are without said conflict. The geography and atmosphere of the Malachite Valleys. The valleys are breathtaking in a way that resists description, but demands the attempt, obviously. Emerald lakes stretch across the terrain, still deep and luminous. The water doesn't reflect light so much as it holds it. It giving off a soft glow in periods of low ambient light. Some scholars of the galactic structure theorized these lakes share a resonance with the emerald waters of life found in the golden palaces. Whether that connection is spiritual, physical, or merely aesthetic remains a matter of ongoing debate within the valleys themselves. fittingly. The grass is the detail visitors mention most, often upon entering. It has never been treaded upon by conflict, never scorched, never soaked in blood. It grows in long, unhurried waves, as though the wind itself moves at a more considerable pace here. To walk through it is to feel, perhaps for the first time, that the ground beneath you has no memory of war. The sky shifts in slow gradients, not tied to any star's cycle, operating on its own internal rhythm. Some say it mirrors the collective emotional state of those personnel present. The others say that's sentimental nonsense. Both camps debate this regularly. Sorry, which is entirely in the spirit of the place. The Emerald Knights are a military force chosen, never volunteered. To become an Emerald Knight is not a career path one applies for. It is a recognition handed down by the hierarchs or by the knights themselves that a person possesses passion refined into restraint. Thank you, I appreciate it. Raw fire is common across the Geboverse. The ability to hold that fire, to direct it with precision and purpose, rather than let it consume everything around it, is rare. Rare indeed. The Knights are not a peacekeeping force in the traditional sense. They do not patrol the valleys. There is nothing to patrol. The universal constant handles that. Their purpose is outward facing. Passage through the Malachite doorways into the Geboverse. Observation, intelligence gathering, and covert retrieval of galactic structure assets. Acting as quiet guardians of the gate itself. They are soldiers who have learned that the most powerful thing they can do is choose when not to act. That discipline is both their greatest weapon and their defining characteristic. The Grand Wall of Heroes stands as the knight's most sacred monument, a record of every trial, every loss, every failed attempt at breaching the doorways before the technique was perfected. It is not a wall of victory. It is a wall of honest cost. New knights are brought before it before their first passage. The message is clear. What you are about to do has a price. Someone already paid it so you could learn. The Malachite doorways. The doorways are the valley's most strategically significant feature and their most dangerous one. They are transportation mechanisms, rifts carefully constructed and refined through enormous trial and error that allow passage into the Geboverse proper. The development of reliable doorway technology costs lives. Documented faithfully on the Grand Wall. Early attempts produced unstable passages, partial transports, and exits in catastrophically wrong locations. You do not want to know what those locations were. What the actual doorways provide are controlled entry and exit points into the Geboverse, allowing the Emerald Knights to emerge covertly at chosen coordinates. Isolation protection. The valleys themselves cannot be located by tracing doorway traffic backward. The path only runs one direction in terms of detectability. The permanent lock. The gate, once sealed by the 13 hierarchs, can only be reopened from within. This was not an accident of design, it was the point. The doorways are not glamorous, they are functional, demanding and unforgiving of carelessness. Emerging through one requires full situational awareness because the Geboverse does not pause to greet you. Now we're on to the Museum of Simulations. Perhaps the most unexpected feature of the Malachite Valleys is the one that reveals the most about the philosophy behind the place itself. The Museum of Simulations exists as what the valleys offer to the concept of decadence, a controlled, consequence free space where desires can be experienced without the cost that pursuing them in reality extracts. You may taste all the soda you want without doing it for real. This is not a trivial detail. It is a statement of principle. The valleys do not moralize against pleasure or appetite. They simply recognize that indulgence pursued in reality often leads to wreckage, addiction, debt, harm to self and others. The slow erosion of what made a person worth knowing. The museum offers a middle path, experience without consequence, appetite without destruction. What can be simulated ranges from simple food, drinks, sensory experiences to the complex historical events, battles the visitor did not fight, conversations with figures long gone. The simulations are the understood to be simulations that transparency is part of their design, that there is no deception here. Some visitors spend days in the museum. Some walk in, look around, and leave after 10 minutes. The knights who have served the longest tend to visit rarely, but sit longest when they do. Who ends up in the Malachite Valleys? The valleys do not advertise, they do not recruit. Those who find themselves at the threshold tend to arrive through one of a few paths. The exhausted, soldiers, politicians, leaders who have been given everything and found the Geboverse has nothing left to offer them but more of the same. The valleys offer stillness without retirement. The idealists, those who still believe in something and want a place where that belief can be argued, tested, and refined without someone trying to shoot them for holding it. Debate flourishes here precisely because of the universal constant that removes the threat that so often ends debates before they can mature. The chosen. The Emerald Knight candidates directed here are by recognition of what they carry inside of them. The lost, occasionally those with no clear reason. They simply arrive. The valley seem to have expected them. Philosophical identity. If the golden palaces represent transcendence and the great pits represent consequences, the Malachite Valleys represent something rarer and more difficult to name: the ongoing work of becoming. Nothing is resolved here permanently. The debates don't end. The simulations don't offer real satisfaction. Only the echo of it, which is honest. The Emerald Knights train and deploy and return and train again. The hierarchs governed from here not because they had all the answers, but because they were committed to continuing to ask the tough questions. The grass grows untouched, not because nothing happens here, but because what happens here does not require the ground to remember it as a wound. That perhaps is the Malachite Valleys in full. A place where the Geboverse's oldest arguments, whether civilization is worth the cost of building it, is held, examined, and kept alive without anyone being killed for having an opinion about it. The gate remains open. The nights remain steady. The doorways open and close. Somewhere in there, someone is losing a debate about soda. Are you ready to someday experience the Malachite Valleys? I am.